first, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello everyone, this is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thank you for joining us. We are live streaming here out of the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom. We do this every weekday starting around 1 p.m., going throughout the afternoon. Just letting everybody know that in case it is your first time joining. For this segment, though, we are going to be talking about orcas, in particular, the Southern Resident Orcas off of the Oregon coast, or at least that make their visits there off the Oregon coast. So we're going to learn about that and a plan to help maybe mitigate some of the issues that those orcas may face. And that is something coming from the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. There is a way for the public to even give feedback on this. That's a lot I'm throwing at you. We're going to slow this down and talk about it right now. Joining us, we have Howard Takata from the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. And you are our expert here today, and I really appreciate you joining us to talk about this, because I am not the expert on orcas. But I think to start off, Howard, would you mind just telling us, what your role is there at ODFW, and maybe give everybody a bit of an overview and understanding of orcas off the Oregon coast?
Sure, Greg. Well, I'm the Southern Resident Orca Conservation Coordinator for Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, and so I've been working with this issue since before they were listed under Oregon's Endangered Species Act last year. And after the listing, I've been working on sort of the post-listing process, I guess, that we've been going through, which, there's a series of steps that are required by state statutes and rules. So that's been my job for the last couple of years.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that's, I'm sure, a lot of planning, but probably a lot of paperwork is what that sounds like as well, that goes along with that. But when it comes to orcas, can you give everybody just that understanding? I think we're all familiar, that there are orcas here in the Northwest, and you see them, up in Puget Sound. You think about that.
Right.
But off the Oregon coast, how many orcas are out there? What kind? Can you give us that real general, understanding of the orcas here?
Sure. There's actually three different types of orcas that live off the Oregon coast. The first type is what we call resident orcas, and the southern residents are one of the resident populations. These orcas eat salmon primarily, especially Chinook salmon is their preferred prey. With the southern residents, they spend most of the summer and fall up in the Puget Sound area, in Washington, southern British Columbia. But during the winter and spring, two of the three pods travel down the coast as far as Monterey Bay in California. And so that, the Oregon coast is a pretty important travel corridor for them as they go back and forth. The second type are what's called bigs, or also known as transient orcas. And these are the kind that eat marine mammals like seals and sea lions, occasionally whale calves. And they have a larger range. They can be anywhere from Southern California up to Southeast Alaska. The third type is what we call offshore orcas. They feed primarily on sharks, and we don't really know a lot about them because, they occur a little bit further off our coast. So we don't see them very often. And then last year, researchers think they may have discovered a fourth type that feeds on sperm whales. And these orcas appear to spend a lot of time in tropical areas, but they have been observed as close as 50 miles off the Oregon coast. So not a lot known about them yet, but pretty exciting news, actually.
Wow, that's interesting. I didn't realize there were that many different types, of orcas.
Right.
So focusing, I guess, on the ones for here, so the Southern Resident Orcas, these are the ones that you've developed this plan for. So what are some of the main concerns when it comes to these particular orcas?
Yeah, I think the main threats for them are a lack of prey, environmental contaminants, and disturbance from vessels and noise. And so because their preferred prey is Chinook salmon, and there just aren't as many Chinook around as there used to be, 100 years ago. So the amount of prey that's available to them has gone down, and this can cause problems with malnutrition, and poor reproduction. Uh, they actually encounter contaminants through their consumption of contaminated prey. So if they feed on Chinook or other salmon that have been exposed to contaminants, these can accumulate in orcas and lead to problems with their immune system or reproduction. And then disturbance from vessels and noise. Vocalizations are really important for them to be able to communicate with each other and to also find their prey. And so, noise from vessels and other things like dredging, drilling, construction activities can interfere with that communication and also prevent them from foraging efficiently.
Wow, so that's a lot of different factors there that could be affecting them. So when it comes to these different issues that these orcas face off the Oregon coast, what are some of the ways that you can mitigate some of those issues, whether it's, the salmon or the noise or the contaminants, either any one of those?
Right. Well, ODFW's draft management plan, I think, tries to take a comprehensive approach and tries to address all the multiple threats. So we focus a lot on restoring salmon habitat because that's important to recovering wild salmon populations. That's going to help ensure a long-term source of prey for the orcas. Um, but we also, try to improve fish passage up and down rivers so that they can, juveniles can get down the river to the ocean, adults can get up to the river to the spawning grounds. We are also going to be looking into whether we can possibly increase production of hatchery Chinook salmon to try to increase the amount of prey available to the orcas. Um, we also have been working on supporting fishery management plans out in the ocean that help to ensure that there's enough prey available out there for the orcas. So, I think because we're a fish and wildlife agency, we tend to focus a lot on the salmon part of it. But we also work pretty closely with other agencies like the Department of Environmental Quality to work on reducing contaminants and pollutants that get into our waterways. And we're also going to address the potential vessel disturbance off the Oregon coast by working on increasing awareness of the boating guidelines. Right now, the federal guidelines are to stay at least 100 yards away from whales and orcas. So we want to try to increase awareness among boaters that guideline is out there. We're also going to evaluate whether perhaps stricter regulations might be necessary in Oregon state waters. So that will be something we'll be looking into as well.
Gotcha. Yes. So a pretty multi-pronged approach there from what it sounds like. And
Right.
for this, I guess one question too, I realized I didn't ask is, you mentioned that the orcas are on the endangered species list for the state of Oregon, if I have that correct.
That's correct.
So since orcas are on the endangered species list for the state of Oregon, how many are there actually out there? And have you seen this population just decline dramatically?
Yeah, right. The latest population number is 74 orcas in the southern resident population. It's kind of stabilized over the last few years, but you know, historically they think that it may have been a couple hundred in that population. One of the big issues was in the late 1960s and early 70s when about 30% of the population was collected for aquariums and marine parks. And so that had a pretty significant impact on the population. After those collections ended, the population did increase back up to almost 100 orcas in the mid 90s. But since then, there's been sort of this second, more gradual decline that continues to today. And so that's probably the result of those three threats that I talked about earlier.
And for this plan, I guess this plan is out there right now for people to look at, but there's a way I know for public feedback and that side of things. So now that you have this written out and some of these different ways that you think that you can tackle some of these issues, what happens next for that?
Right. So we sent out a news release on Monday announcing that our draft plan was available on our website for the public to review. Um, and then we're planning on having a public meeting on the evening of July 9th. And this will be an opportunity for folks to, um, provide comment on what they think of the plan. And we'll also be accepting written comments through July 15th. And then we'll look at all the comments that come in, and try to incorporate the things that we can into the plan. And then the final draft will be presented to the State Fish and Wildlife Commission on August 15th. And typically about 2 weeks before the meeting, we will post the materials on our website so that, folks have another opportunity to look at the final draft at that point, and then they can provide comments directly to the commission, either written comments, or they can testify or provide testimony at the meeting.
So lots of ways there to provide input and feedback on these potential plans. So that's something that for everybody out there too, this is one of the things we want to make sure that you knew is that you can provide your feedback as well. I had just a couple of other questions here too. I don't think I actually asked this. How far off the coast, like off the shore, are the southern resident orcas typically?
They don't come in quite as close as the bigs or transients. Transients, they're the ones that actually come into our rivers and bays sometimes. I think some were observed this spring. The southern residents tend to stay a little bit further offshore. They can come within about a mile or so. But, typically, I think they did some satellite tagging studies and found that they generally travel anywhere between a mile and maybe 7 or 8 miles off the Oregon coast.
Okay. So it's those big whales, the transient ones. Those are the ones that, will come in, I suppose.
Right.
So if they're going after mammals or sea lions or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Those are the ones that usually will come into the bays and rivers in the springtime during the spring pupping season.
Fascinating. Well, I guess my last question here is, what do you think is the most important thing that people should know or can do at home to help with this whale population and some of the issues that they're facing?
Well, I think the first or the most important thing right now is to recognize that we don't have just one type of orca off the Oregon coast. There's many different types, and some of those orcas are part of an endangered population, a very small endangered population. So I think that's the first step, is just to um, be aware of that, but also to know that Oregon state agencies are going to do um, everything they can to help with their recovery, and also just we all can do things just in our daily lives to also contribute. And those things are all the things I'm sure people have heard before. Choosing environmentally friendly products to try to reduce the amount of contaminants that go through our wastewater and into our waterways, especially during these dry periods. It's important to conserve water. The more water we can conserve, the more stays in salmon streams. People can also volunteer. There's a lot of groups that go out and help watershed councils and also ODFW plant trees in riparian areas along streams to help shade them and keep the waters cool. So there's just a variety of things that people can just do in their everyday lives to sort of pitch in.
Nice. Yeah, something that you may not realize helps, an orca 2 miles off the coast, but you're doing it
Right.
there in your backyard by planting that tree and by the river. So yeah, it's all connected, all interconnected. Well, Howard, I want to say thank you, for having time to talk to us today. I really appreciate it. I think everybody's very interested in what's going on out there and this plan and how to take care of it. And you've certainly presented that. You've given us all that information on what to do. Anything else that you think is important for people to know?
I think something that's interesting for me, it came up in conversation the other day, is that they do. They're, this is a very unique population of orcas. They're very tight knit family groups. The pods have their own unique dialects. They communicate with each other, and they also have their own distinct culture. For example, when one pod or two pods are coming together, they've been apart for a while and they're coming back together again. They'll actually line up in these two rows facing each other, almost like a greeting ceremony. And a lot of times when they're going to be going their separate ways, they'll do the same thing as sort of like a farewell ceremony. So that it's just very interesting animals here, and I think that's something that will help people to relate to them.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I'm going to go down that rabbit hole after this. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, for joining us here today. I really appreciate your time and in educating people more about this, educating myself about this more, and just all the work that you do. Thanks, Howard.
Well, thank you very much, Greg, for giving me the opportunity to talk about the Southern residents.
Yeah, anytime. For everybody watching too, we're going to take a quick break. We've got more coming up. I'll be back live at 2 p.m. If you're watching live right now, if you're watching after the fact, you might be able to watch that right away. These are always on demand on the Fox 12 Oregon app or KPTV.com or even our YouTube channel, so plenty of places to find these segments. Feel free to share them. We'll take a quick break. Like I said, I'll be back at 2 o'clock, and we'll be talking about Oregon Bottle Drop's Hidden Bottle campaign, so switching gears with that. But I'll talk to you soon. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.